So hope you all having a good morning here. I'm Mike Prasad. I'm the co-founder of Tiny Sponsor, and I have an awesome panel here today. We're going to be talking about a marketing yourself, do-it-yourself guide to finding and navigating deals. And we have a really great lineup. We have, to my left, starting from my left, Amy Royland, who is a fashion nerd on Instagram. Some of the most amazing, colorful content I've ever seen. We have, Drea. Drea over there. Also fashion lifestyle. We have Kat on the brand side. And then I'm going to...
Anais Ganuna.
Yeah, I'm so afraid of your name because every time I've said it, I'm pretty sure I've messed it up. Who's a photographer and also working on the marketing side as well. And so if you each could tell me just a brief intro of who you are, what you do, and also a little bit of what makes what you do unique. Starting with Amy, please.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. I am a fashion blogger, a fashion nerd. I blog about fashion, but in a different way, incorporating like art and color, kind of like Wes Anderson style, and it's very different, I guess. If you see my page, it's like kind of crazy. So a different way of blogging. I'm also an eyewear designer and shoe designer.
Again, I'm Anais Ganuna. I basically help purpose-driven and women-owned businesses define and develop their visual brand and their digital market. And their yeah, that helps, doesn't it? So I'll start again. My name is Anais Ganuna. I help purpose-driven companies and women-owned brands to define and develop their visual brand and also create their digital marketing around that.
Hi everyone, I'm Drea. I'm known on social media as Drea Knows Best. I make comedic content, mostly short form comedy on like several different apps. I started off on Vine and now I've just grown on TikTok, on Instagram, YouTube, and different platforms. So my main thing is comedy, I would say. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Catherine Mendez, and I do social media and influencer marketing strategy as a consultant. I currently work with Tarani, a syrup company based in San Francisco. It's a 90-year-old family-owned, privately held company. So you probably have seen them in coffee shops around town here and all over the country. They're also international as well. And then also working with a health and wellness startup company that is about to launch as well.
Cool. So on them, we have of the four people here, two of them are primarily content creators, two of them are primarily on the marketing side. And so I'm hoping to contrast not just like the content creation and the deal side, but also the needs on both sides. So to that effect, for the creators on the panels, tell us about what content you create, but specifically like the types of posts you create and what you're known for in that content, and on what platform as well, please.
I'll start. So I usually do short form content. So that's between like 10 to 15 seconds is like the sweet spot. On platforms like TikTok, which was previously called Musical.ly, YouTube, or more long form content, which I first started off impersonating my African mom, like African moms be like, and then I grew audience from that. And so most of my videos are always just me being silly, showing a lot of my personality-based stuff, just being myself, but also, because I try not to like, just doing short-form skits in a general aspect, yeah.
On those skits, what is the nature of the content? Are they mostly comedic? Is there a certain thematic element that you always have across your content? Are there certain types of skits? Like, give me an example of maybe 2 or 3 of them.
Okay. For the most part, so I like to collaborate a lot with different content creators. So it'll be a skit. So I try to just do like relatable content, yeah. So something like you can watch and like, oh my God, I can relate to that. Like, oh, my mom was like that when I was growing up. So things like that will bring a little like nostalgia when you're watching it. Like you can just relate to the video and at the same time has humor in it. You know, that's in the fall.
Amy?
So I try to use like every platform I can because I think it's smart as an influencer to take your content and just like spread it across all platforms all the time. And I've been blogging for about 5.5 years. I used to like go out and shoot myself. Like I would get a tripod and a clicker and shoot my own content. I still do that a lot of times when you see in my studio, just like from here, I shot it myself. So I would shoot like 2 blogs a day and I have like over 1,000 blog posts. It's a little extreme. But I'm just like always creating content. So trying to use all the platforms, lots of shoe pictures, like me in front of a wall, but I'm like on my back and my feet are in the air and it's like a picture of a wall with my feet. Product shots, lots of eyewear, focus on eyewear and eyewear blogging. I like accessories a lot. So yeah, and using color. So like any people, like artists in LA that do a crazy mural, I'm like, oh, I want to collaborate with them. And then I'll shoot up my outfit in front of that wall and then tag them. And I guess, express myself in that way. I don't know, yeah. But I'm on Instagram mainly, and Blogger.
So I'm going to translate how I would view that in a way. So I think both of you have very distinct styles. They're very who you are, which is wonderful. But Amy, on your post, you always have a very specific style in your content, which is very colorful, it's very curated, and very, like the details are very important and always fine-tuned. But it's always featuring around a product or an outfit, usually, and it's, while you're in it, the focus isn't necessarily you, it's an object or a setting, and which makes it really product-friendly, right? But all of your content like really breaks down into, maybe 3 or 4 types of posts. So it's usually a product focus like the shoe photos or the glasses, or it's an environmental pattern scenario where you're looking at patterning and color repetition, or it's an outfit type lifestyle post. And most of your posts fall into those 3 categories. For Dre, your content, at least on Instagram, I haven't seen TikTok stuff, so I apologize. Yes. But it's not just relatable, it's this idea of slice of life. It's something that you experience that other people like you and somewhat you experience as well. And it's not just always comedic, I think it's also this is my everyday. And so it's this more personal, less curated, but still very pointed in terms of the key points in terms of your skits. And that makes it a completely different type of engagement format. And so even though you guys both approach it from, this is who I am, it still takes a very structured form. It's something I want to highlight. So on the other side of the equation, you have the brands. And so on the brand side, you have specific needs when working with creators, when marketing. And how do you approach finding a creator? Not literally find them, but like when you look at someone, how do you judge them? How do you figure out whether or not they're a good fit? And then where do you see that fit happening in their content?
That's a great question, Mike. Thank you. So we find our influencers specifically with Tarani. Essentially, we obviously start with target market alignment. So every brand is always going to probably right out the door say, who is your target audience? Who essentially is interested in your content on the daily, not, one post at a time. So that's where we're going to start first. Once we can figure out that we have audience alignment, then we're going to start looking at your actual subject matter. So for instance, in Tarani's case, we're looking for folks that are interested in food and beverage, and mostly beverage related, because if we're going to do a partnership, it's 99.9% of the time we're looking for people to create beverage-focused recipes. So just so happens that I'm in the process of finalizing my influencers for our holiday campaign. So I'm reaching out to some that, one of them in particular, I think the name of it is Hey Grill Hey. And it's all about, grilled foods. And you look at the feed and it's absolutely amazing. She gets great engagement. I mean, every single post is liked by a ton of people, but also the interaction between her audience is super authentic. You can tell that this is an account that's been built up over time. People are interested in what this person has to show and talk about. But interestingly enough, as I'm reaching out, this particular influencer had reached out to us in the past, and I've been trying to find an opportunity to work together. My first question was, listen, this is a batched drink focused program for the holidays. We want to bring people together, and your entire feed is all about grilled foods. So I'm going to pose the question to you. Do you think this is a good fit for your audience? Would they be interested in seeing batch drinks because you are the creator and you're the one interacting with your audience on a daily? And so have you ever posted something like this, and what was the reaction? And as a good brand creator, right, because you are a brand, and so you are marketing yourself in a particular way, this person actually responded to me and said, you know what, I don't think this is going to be a great opportunity for my audience. I don't think that there's alignment here. And that's a person that I'm going to keep on my list for the next opportunity that might be a little bit more food focused. In addition to that, we really are just looking for authenticity as well. We can look beyond sort of the facade and start to understand who's really getting authentic engagement, because at the end of the day, the truth comes out. We ask for insights, at the end of every program. We ask for screenshots so that we can actually log and keep track of who actually is giving us a return. So first thing would be target alignment. We want to make sure that our audiences are in sync, and then content subject matter as well. We want to make sure that you are already talking about what our brand talks about, so that we have a cohesive program and we can work together in more than just one format. We're also looking for long term. We don't really particularly want to start building relationships with people that are going to just work with us one time and then work with a competitor on the next program. We want to build long-term relationships because at the end of the day, your audience is listening to you and turning to you for ideas, for recommendations. So therefore, we're going to want to work with people that want to continue to come back and work with us.
So I want to call out the language you use. It's very objective driven, right? Mm-hmm. And so from a brand side, it's purposeful. You have really key things you need to have to exist for you to even engage, right?
Right.
But I think if you look at from the creator point of view, it was very stylistic. It was very qualitative driven versus more quantitative, more objective based. But where I think where those things overlap, and this is kind of key to navigating a deal and finding the right deal, is going to be looking at as a creator who your what your formats are. Like we broke down some of your post formats, and for the brand, in this case, let's say Tarani, you need to have the right audience that's going to engage for the right reasons. And so I don't know if you guys are on your phone, but you can look up Tarani, Torani, and you'll notice their feed is also very colorful. It's a lot of fruit colors. They focus on highly curated type content. And so that potentially would, like, for Amy, that would be really good. Her content matches her audience, appreciates the same value systems. Mm-hmm. So the bridge between the two sides is going to be that value system. Mm-hmm. And then how does that translate from your objectives into a person's content?
Right.
So for Anais, you've also worked not just one, you don't focus on one main brand, where they can't oversee the entirety of one brand. Multiple brands, but you handle everything. Whereas you work across multiple brands on multiple levels. So tell me about when you're approaching doing a type of sponsorship deal, what is the approach you take and some of the criteria that you look for in that process?
I think Kat hit a lot of the major points. I keep hitting something under the table. The only other thing that I would add is the collaborative process, I think, is something that I really put a lot of weight on. I think that there's been such a huge rise of micro-influencers that I really want to work with somebody who knows their craft, that knows their value, and can also, say no and work with us to creating something that's authentic to their particular audience, but also is authentic to the brand. So I really look for people who know who they are and what their value is and what they're bringing.
So I think a keyword here we hear a lot is alignment. This idea of, where is the alignment? And that is sort of a vague term in the sense of what is aligned. And so let's break that down. Is that stylistic? Is it value set? Is it qualitative? What do you define as alignment?
I define it as, I feel like, the creators can maybe agree or disagree. Amy has a very specific style, and like you mentioned, a few different posts that tend to come up a lot in her feed. When I help brands define what it is, like how to visually translate what their brand pillars are and what they're about, I want to make sure if they are a bright and colorful brand that's about fashion, then Amy would be, it's just like an easy, basically what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are meeting whoever the audience, the demographic is for the brand. We want to make sure that we're meeting that audience where they already are, and the creators are who's providing that audience and have cultivated that space for us. Is that?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I think creators know their audience the best. They know you follow someone for who they are, what they create, and that creator engaged with their audience every single day. So they're going to know what they're going to respond to and what not to do. There's some brands that I think are say, I want you to post X. And that's always going to fail. Their returns are going to be far less. And to be fair, creators should say no to that. There should be some flexibility of adaptation there between the messaging and the goals and the objectives of the brand, and then curating it and reshaping it for their audience. So going back to this idea of alignment, I would further define alignment as this idea of, more specifically, this idea of resonance. It's a term that we use internally at Tiny Sponsor, which is, resonance is defined as alignment between the brand's values and messaging, the campaign goals, the creator's values and presentation, and then their audience and why the audience is there. So their expertise, the needs, the things that they follow that person for. And when you find that resonance across all those points of alignment, you start seeing really good returns. It's positive for the creator. It's also very positive for the brand. So an example, I think, going back to Amy as well, like if you only work with brands that, well, what you do, fall into your style and your approach, it doesn't matter if it's a hashtag ad or not. It's still going to perform well and look very good to your audience because your audience wants to see more of that content. And I think for Drea as well, the idea is you don't want to deviate from who you are and why your audience personally follows you. That's that personal connection that drives the value for both sides of the party. So finding that alignment is really critical, and making sure it's on multiple levels, and so this idea of resonance. Now, tell me about the process. So, and anyone can grab this, but either for creators, how do you actually literally find a brand? And for a brand, outside of qualifying a creator, how do you just identify them in the first place? And then how do you approach that person? So anyone can take that question.
So one thing like all creators have in common, especially like micro influencers, is that brand deals don't come often. So like you can either wait for an email to come for someone to collaborate, for a brand reaching out to you, or you can actually, like for me, I always shoot my shot. So if I see like, for example, I see someone like post maybe like a vodka influencer ad deal, I would like go into their Instagram of vodka and be like, hey, Absolute Vodka, like, I love this vodka. Can we collaborate, or can you connect me with the email of whoever is the brand ambassador, brand influencer marketing specialist for the company? So just reaching out to people through LinkedIn, I try to do. I also like send out emails. These are just my tips. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I send out emails to like different influencer agencies to like, hey, I'm Drea, introduce myself, show a little bit of like the brands I've worked with, the analytics, like how it did. And then of course, sometimes people do reach out to me in my email, but I always like advise even my friends, like, don't just wait for an opportunity to come. You have to actually go out there and reach out to people, send emails. Because at the end of the day, you are your brand, and no one can represent you as much as you can. So just be your own brand ambassador.
When you send those emails out, how are you presenting yourself? Is it like, do you have a one sheet? Are you giving them a link? Are you providing key photos? And do you change that depending on your pitch, or how detailed do you get?
So mostly it's like copy and paste. Is usually like the same email, but I always make sure I highlight certain things in bold. Like I'll like have an example, like the last brand deal I did was with Netflix. So I have screenshots of like how much views it got, how many clicks, how many swipe ups did we get, and I have those like numbers in bold so they can see like this is how much power that I have, and this is what I can offer to your agency. So if you have any brands that you guys are working with that aligns with what I can do, a personality-based campaign, then set me up. So usually it's the same format email, but just switching it based on what the agency does.
Amy, I'm curious to hear about yourself.
So it's kind of different for me. So if it's like a brand that I know has a budget and who will pay for postings, and they're like a bigger brand, I'll get their email, their PR email. Sometimes it's on their Instagram where it says email. You can click on it and it will say like social at. And I send it to my agents. I have 3 agents who work for me now within the past like 2 months. And it's been amazing because they're so smart. Like I'm like content creator, crazy, you know? So when I try to pitch myself, I'm like, they're like, I don't really get response. So now that I have them on my side, they like pitch me and I get a lot of work finally. Took a while, but if it's like a smaller Spain brand that I like love, I'll like message them on Instagram like, I love your shoes and I would love a free pair, and I'll post them, and they're like, okay. So I'll do that myself. But if it's like a paid like I have my agents now. I'm like, ugh, I'm too awkward. I'm like, too crazy.
On the bad side, do you want to be pitched? Do you prefer to go find it? What's the process there?
It's a mixture. Well, because Tarani is a pretty well-known brand, we get outreach a lot, whether it's through our Instagram account, which I manage, whether it's through our online form, which gets forwarded to me. Essentially, there's multiple different ways. We use listening tools because we're always constantly sort of keeping a pulse on what's being said about our brand, following different hashtags that we use, different hashtags that are associated with our brand as well, that aren't necessarily brand related. So there's times when we see folks like yourself maybe wake up in the morning and talk about how much they absolutely can't seem to have their coffee without their Tarani vanilla, and they're obsessed with it. Then we take a look at that person's Instagram feed or their Facebook, or we go to their blog, and then we say, hey, this seems like it could be a really great partner, and we might reach out to them. On the flip side, they're reaching out to us as well, just like yourself. And I will say this, one of my pet peeves, though, is people that just, as a content creator, you're pitching a job for yourself. So you need to be prepared to send your quote-unquote resume. It's a serious thing. To think that you can just send me an email and say, hey, I just started blogging a week ago, and I have all this power, and look, my stuff is great, and I want to partner with you. I just delete it. I don't want to see that. I'm not interested in that, because what I am interested in is the person that contacts me and says, hey, I know everything about your brand. I think it's really great. I use it every day, or I just became familiar with it XYZ ago. Here's my one sheet. It contains my audience demographics across my Facebook, my Instagram, my Twitter if I use it. My blog receives this many page views on average a month. It receives this many unique viewers as well. My last few posts, brand partnerships, have received this amount of traction. I was able to get this many clicks through the recipe posts that I did, all just because I put some effort in and I really want to work with you. So I really want to show my value. That's the person that I then pick up the phone and say, hey, let's talk about this upcoming program that we have that I think would be really great for you. I can't stress enough that it's not just, no one's going to give you work by just sending a quick email and then expecting me to do all the work. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go and seed out to find you and look you up on Instagram. I'm just going to delete the email. But I will give the opportunity to the person that's either immediately linked me to everything, plus they've given me their one sheet, they've given me audience demographics, and any other piece of information that can actually help me make an informed decision about what I'm about to present to my client.
So, to note on that, it's structure, right? So a creator who knows who they are, what they do, and why they do it, and how they do it,
Right.
is able to communicate that.
Exactly.
And in a structured format, allows you to make that decision easier.
Well, and in addition to that, what it tells me is that when I do a program with that person, at the end of that program, I send out a spreadsheet, and I expect you to fill it out. And I've already had influencers that I've worked with that I pay pretty good money to that are sending me just the screenshots and expecting me to do the work. I don't call them up anymore. Thank you for your time. If you couldn't even so much as fill out my spreadsheet and make my life easier, I don't want to work with you anymore. There's a million other ones that are banging down our door that actually will do the job correctly for the money I'm paying you for. So that's why the intro to the brand is so important, because it says a lot about what your output will be like.
There's a level of professionalism as well, right? 'Cause
Exactly.
I think ultimately, if you're just trying to get free product and just create cool content, that's one thing. If you're trying to make a living off of this, you need to know who you are, why you do what you do, and what your value is. And also, that helps you get better terms as well,
Right.
Which we'll get to in a second. Anais, on your side with working with creators.
On my side, a cat nails it every time, so I just want to just keep listening to you
Thanks.
talk.
We
honestly.
need to work together.
We do. But we've been stating, people who know their value and know what they have to offer, to me, is everything. As far as tools that I personally use, in addition, I love people who reach out and who already have found the brand and who are connected and who can speak to hey, this is my audience and I really love the product and I would love to collaborate. I think those people are fantastic and they're natural. Of course, there's vetting that goes through, making sure that their following is actually authentic, checking the engagements and everything else, since there are a lot of boosted numbers, let's say. But when it goes to me searching, I do use a lot of tools. Tiny Sponsor, I think, is an amazing not to toot your horn, but it's an amazing platform to also find creators who, like we've been saying, know their value, have put together packages that are easy to pick through. Or also like People Map is another resource that I absolutely adore to finding and really vetting influencers.
I think in both cases, People Map and Tiny Sponsor, what both platforms do technically is they structure the data. So they're saying, okay, and they're asking the questions, either they're pulling it from the hashtags and the content of the person, or they're asking the person, in our case, saying, well, what do you do? What's your format? Like, give us that data so you can make that decision. And whether or not it's done through a platform, whether it's presented on a direct outreach, I think being able to communicate, that's really important to putting together a deal. And I guess one thing I want to ask you, because of your photography background, is Kat's done a really good job at hitting on the objective points, but there's a whole qualitative thing that matters to a brand, right? Because so much of storytelling and narrative and conversion and culture is visual and creative. So when you're approaching creators, what are some of the ways that you make sure there's a qualitative match there?
So I think already when I'm vetting them, there has to be a certain quality of the work that they're putting out. So I don't tend to work with people who just stick to like strictly iPhone photography or those types of mediums. Coming from a photography background, I really appreciate great photography. And I think that there's a lot that goes into making a particular post or even a series of posts to actually make an impact that's beyond just the styling of it. So when I'm communicating what the brand values are, it's really more of a conversation with the creator. And like, I come from a creative basis, so I want them to feel excited about creating something that really connects with them and what they want to put out into the world. And that in and of itself, because the people that I'm choosing to work with tends to have a higher quality posting than just a like, oh, hey, this is a great thing, like, go check it out. Like, I want there to be deeper value. Yeah, I want there to be intention behind it and not just like, hey, this is a cool product.
Okay.
And just to add one thing to that, also, because I agree with that, there's definitely an element of the way we look at it is the majority of the time we don't want to partner with influencers that we wouldn't want to share their content on our own feed. So that's really important, which goes in line with you know, the subject matter that in which you're posting. We want to make sure that we are creating a symbiotic relationship, right? Because it's not just about like we're compensating you to provide us with something. We also want to grow with you. So if we're going to partner together and we're going to pay you, it's because we also want to share your content to our audience. We value your effort and we want to, you know, push it to the masses. And so therefore, if we're going to partner with someone that we wouldn't feel comfortable sharing their content, then what's the point of partnering, right? Not to say that we haven't partnered with content creators that, you know, aren't professional photographers, that heck, they just like, I mean, they might even just, this is a coffee, post it there. But then when I'm looking at those types of partners, it's not, the intention isn't to reshare to our channel necessarily. It's more about we are willing to pay that content creator because they actually have influence over their audience. So we don't want to discourage people that aren't professional photographers, because that's not necessarily why everybody's out there blogging and creating content, right? Not everybody knows how to use a DSLR, and you know, not everybody has an iPhone, but yet there's many creators out there that actually have an audience that are listening to them, that are hearing what they're saying, and they're actually taking their recommendations and going out and getting these products. So we still want to leave the door open for those. There's still a place for that type of partnership as well.
So it's a different type of quality, let's say, right?
Exactly.
So across any campaign, we bucket all marketing goals really into 4 categories. And you've touched, both of you touched about across some of these, which is, you know, tell a story, right? The creative side, the communication. That could also be expertise. So saying like, some authority there, right? There's going to be drive an action, drive a click, drive a conversion point. There's going to be create content, which might be like you just want beautiful content. And then there's going to be grow audience. So visibility, community engagement, stuff like that. And so every creator will cater to usually 2 or 3 of those goals. Usually you don't have someone who caters to all of those because there's different types of audience, different types of engagement. Let's talk about not just the matchmaking, but once you find the match, right? So let's get down to the terms, the pricing, how do you determine the structure of the deal? Meaning, as a brand, what are you expecting? What are you asking for? And then how are you compensating for that? As a creator, how do you tell brands how they should be integrated into your content? Are you saying, I only want to do one post? Are you saying, no, it has to be a more comprehensive thing? And that doesn't just mean multiple posts. It could also mean other deliverables, such as a post plus an Instagram story, or photo rights, or something else. So, actually, Amy?
Yeah, I feel like nowadays people, like brands, mainly just want like an Instagram post and like a story, which is interesting because I'm like, I can go out and shoot a whole blog for you, like 12 images, edit them, and do a whole shoot. And everyone's like, no, it's okay. We just want an Instagram. Like I'm talking about Uber, Amazon, you know, big brands that I'm working with. I'm like, okay. So they just want it easy, I guess, which is interesting. And I get a lot of hits on my blog, and I'm always like, oh, it's so weird that they don't want that. But for pricing, I mean, when I started, or like even like a couple months ago, I wasn't paid that much. I would like negotiate my own deals, and I like didn't value myself. I was like, okay, I'll do it. I don't know. I want to help the brands out, and I was like doing a lot of work for free because I would feel so bad for these smaller brands, and I'm like, I just want to help them and get them seen. And a lot of people are like, what are you doing? Like, you're going out and doing these crazy photo shoots. You're paying photographers out of pocket, and like these brands are taking advantage. And so I got my agents, and now they like stepped in, and I'm finally getting paid what I'm worth. And it's like freaking incredible. My God, I don't have to get a full-time job now. Like, this is my job finally. But so they kind of negotiate, but I like, you know, a lot of the brands want you to post like on Instagram and a story and then push to Twitter and Facebook. So that's like mainly the thing. I don't know. And Uber wants to do like a blog, but I'm like, you guys want like 12 images? And they're like, no, 3 or 4 images is fine. I'm like, okay. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, so I think going back to what you said, brands are generally, and this is a fallacy a lot of agencies make, is that they are looking for some type of KPI. So like, how many likes did it get? How much clicks did it go through? And the quite honest reality, if you're only looking for that, go buy a Google ad or a Facebook ad. Yeah. It's going to perform. That's a metric you care about. Working with a creator is more multifaceted than that. And especially in your case, it's content. Like, you do amazing content. So if I was a brand, I would say, yeah, I want you to do a whole photo shoot, do a blog post, but I also want rights to those photos, because that's probably better than I can do at any reasonable budget on my own, with a distinct style and a distinct character that is just not going to originate from the brand. So I think pricing is going to be based on multiple points of value. And I think a lot of agencies, like Tarani, for example, they do a great job at understanding the different types of value. Not all agencies do. Drea, for you, on your content, it's very lifestyle. So it's, how do you integrate brands into that? And then how do you approach that from a pricing? Because video is more expensive to create. It's a lot more work. You have to pay other people a lot of times to get other roles.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, brands do want that picture post. And I feel like as a content creator, being able to create an experience, you get that best with a video. And with creators, we're able to market products to our audience. Like, I can like tell my audience, like, this cup, the way I can market this cup is like, it makes it more personal, because my audience knows, like, if Dre is saying this cup is the best cup in the world, they believe that this cup is the best cup in the world, you know? So like, that's why, like, if I'm working with a brand, I like to be able to make it authentic in a video case, like just my personality showing, me using the item. Like the Netflix one I did, they had like a pop-up place in LA, and I was able to go there and like show my audience me with the lockers and just making it authentic, you know? So when it comes to like branding, with working with brands, pricing, they usually want like a package. You know, if it's like 2 Instagram posts, a swipe up Instagram story, and in my audience too on TikTok, they want a video on TikTok. It varies. But the main thing, like when I'm working with a brand, I don't want them to say, yeah, can you just take a picture with this item and just smile? Like, no, it's not. I want it to be either, if I'm maybe a boomerang, you know, just something that has life in it when I'm working with a brand.
Mike, you brought up image rights, which I think is something that a lot of influencers don't know to ask for compensation for. Yes.
You never let a brand use your image unless they're paying you for it.
I really think it's important to know that when I'm negotiating deals for influencers that I work with or for brands, image rights is always up for discussion. I don't automatically assume that because I'm working with a creator that I have the right to use their content, that even if I paid them for it, Like in the photography world, there's for hire, and then there's actual contract work. Whenever you click an image or you're creating content, you own that copyright and there's value to it. So if there's one takeaway that I can leave this panel with is to make sure that you understand the value of the content and that you're not just giving it away.
It's a bargaining chip, and I think I know a lot of creators have said, I'm okay with a brand using it because it gets me more exposure. That's fine. But then say you have rights to use on social with crediting, and at least use it as a, like, I'm giving you a favor in a way. It's something it's an asset that you own that you're letting them use, and at least dictate how it gets used at minimum. We're running out of time. I want to leave at least time for one or two questions. But before we end up wrapping, for Anais, Amy, Andrea, tell me how you make money related to social, but not directly through sponsors. Because I know Anais, you're a photographer as well, so I'm sure there's a lot of business that comes through that because you're social.
Yeah, I mean, social media for me is just, it's a megaphone. I use it to share who I am, what I'm going through for my personal self. Like, I like to be, vulnerable and share everything that I'm going with. And I also like to, empower the people that I work with. So I use it as that avenue. But I get a lot of inquiries for photography. I have brands reaching out to me personally as well to represent them. And a lot of clients that come through there who see the work, there's resonance with what I'm saying and what either they want to see or what they're going through, so they want to work together.
So lead generation, essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I use Depop and Poshmark and different apps to sell the stuff, like clothing, because a lot of my clothes are brand new and my shoes, and I'll just shoot them once, and I do love them, trust me, but I'm like, I have too much stuff. So I'm like, okay, so I go through my closet and I sell a lot on there, and then I go to like Buffalo Exchange and sell stuff, and then I also design shoes and glasses, so that's another revenue stream.
So, but did the designing of the shoes and glasses, did those opportunities come because of your visibility on social? Was it separate from that? Did it augment that?
It was completely because of my social media presence and my style. I teamed up with an eyewear company to create the glasses, which was Betty and Veronica, and then I teamed up with a Spanish shoe wear designer that I've been a fan of forever. I met her in Barcelona recently, and I was like, let me create a line with you. And so it is it's social media, yeah. Even selling my clothes helps, yeah.
Andrea?
So for me, my background is in engineering, so I used to work full-time as an engineer. But I recently just quit that job to go to grad school full-time. So my main source of income is social media. Live streaming helps on YouTube. I just recently launched my clothing line, Speaking Into Existence, just telling my audience and whoever out there to just have a positive mindset, positive affirmations, the law of attraction. I genuinely do believe in that, so I've been selling those shirts. And that's pretty much it. Social media, yeah.
On the platforms, do you use any of the platforms where there's gifting or fan audience contribution?
So if you go live on TikTok, you can have that. When your audience is watching you, they can give you gift points, and then those gift points you can cash them out for actual money. So there's a lot of live streaming apps too out there, Twitch, YouNow, and so on and so forth.
I think YouTube also has that now too. So
Oh,
to
okay, nice.
wrap all that up, I think to highlight that is that because each of the creators here know who they are, what they do, and why they create, and who their audience is, they are a brand themselves that extends beyond just their posting, right? So all of you have found ways to monetize that are based on what you create, but not necessarily only through sponsored posts. And on the sponsored post side, I think, again, understanding both the qualitative and the quantitative sides to it, and understanding points of value, every creator, through just pure social distribution, has a media exposure value. For Instagram, you can check that out at tinysponsor.com/calculator, where it tells you what the media value is. But beyond that, there's other forms of value. So things to keep in mind when you're structuring and navigating deals. It's not just about the raw numbers or the conversion, especially when it comes to these types of formats. I'm going to do, we have literally 2 minutes, so if anyone has one or two quick questions, lady behind Rod.
They reached out to me through an email, and they're social media agents. They represent social media people. It's called Jabber House. But I met with them, And I was like, okay. I get like kind of like scared because managers and agents can be crazy. And I said, I'll do a 6-month trial, but within like the first day, they got me a huge job. I mean, they're amazing. They've blown my mind. So they're just like on it, just killing it for me. But yeah, so they reached out to me.
Definitely do trials. Don't do exclusive till
Exactly.
they return.
Yeah.
Another one that I've heard good things about is Bella Agency. It's been pretty good for both commercial and social.
Can I comment on that real quick? Because that doesn't always mean that's the way to go, depending on sort of
Yeah.
where you are in your sort of influencer career, I guess, because that also can eliminate you from working with other brands that are looking to build direct relationships with these influencers, or maybe even perhaps consider an ambassador program. So with Tarani specifically, what I didn't mention is we do work through, not only with companies such as Tiny Sponsor or myself working directly with micro influencers, but we also have an agency that we work with that has sort of a network of influencers that they can track and pixel their blog pages and their social and whatever, and then provide, real-time dashboarding of insights. So there's multiple ways to do it. Once you get an agent involved, you're exclusive to mostly big brands, and it's because you're working only specifically on these like 6-figure plus deals, which means people like myself are not reaching out to you anymore because we're not going to deal with an agent that's expecting, thousands of dollars versus anywhere from $1 to $1,000 directly in your pocket. So just to be clear
There's
on
some
that.
bad agencies too. So I think
Exactly, and then there's that too.
yeah, a lot of agencies. The issue is some don't have a basis for pricing. They tend to be really arbitrary and negotiation based, which is fine. But there's a base value, then there's probably a cap value to the client.
Exactly. And while we want to make sure that you are not working with a competitor right after a campaign we work on, once you get agents involved, you're exclusive to most of the time whatever they want you to work on, as opposed to you being able to always have your own creative thought process there to say, I only want to work with brands that I use and I believe in because I'm an authentic content creator.
Yeah, don't fall into the same trap as with agencies also is that you, as a creator, you know your audience. Your agent doesn't know your audience. You know your audience. So make sure you keep that flexibility there because you're always going to need it. I'm going to give Rod make your question really fast.
So we talked a lot about like logical brand relationships. What does it look like from both sides for like risky things? So like recently Deadpool 2 theme song was done by Celine Dion, and on paper that doesn't make sense at all. People with like a deep understanding of both brands are like, yes, this is the home run, and it was Billboard #1 and everything. But if that came across like your desk and be like, nah, this is too much, or like what is navigating like a risky?
It depends. It depends on the brand. Like Tarani's a 90-year-old company, so probably not going to take very many risks. We go through the content, we go through the feed to make sure you're not saying sexual, crazy, non-political or anti-political or whatever, because we want to remain kind of clean and simple and easy. But it depends on the brand, right? Like if it was a vodka brand, if it was a risque brand, like fine. It really depends. It depends on what's happening with that brand at the time. Are they going through a rebrand or are they going through a new campaign? So I wouldn't put anything like completely out of the question. We look at everything as sort of a one-off. What could this potentially do for the brand?
Cool. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the panel.
Thank you.
Next panel will be up in a few minutes, and we will be in the hallway if you'd like to talk as well.